In today's video, I'm going to react to a video that I found online where different groups of parents are getting together and talking about how they like to raise their kids. So it's going to be quite an emotive topic today, and we are definitely not going to agree on everything. I certainly will probably pick some key bits, I think, from each of them, and you might not necessarily agree with the way that I do things either, but you know what? We are all parents, we are all learning, we are all growing. I'm going to give you my spin on it, and also thinking about therapeutically as well, kind of what you might need to bear in mind for some children that have got more complex behaviour. But let's just go ahead and see.
As the child grows and as you as a parent train that child, then more freedom should be granted to make their own decisions.
But I don't think we should train our children. I feel like you train a dog and not a kid.
I think she's a bit riled up already. You train a dog, not a kid. You know what? I think there's a fixation on words here. And maybe he didn't choose the quite the right word, but you know what? Training a kid and helping your kid grow with some kind of rules and routines and helping them to be able to function in the world as a young person and later as an adult, that's training. Whatever word you want to use is up to you.
I think train is a good word.
I don't want to train child.
Okay, well I do.
Maryland parents are accused of child neglect after allowing their two kids to walk home alone from a park about a mile away.
Okay. I wonder how old those kids were, because again, you're going to want to let your kids have a little bit of independence and learn. You know, what we don't know is how, well, we know it's a mile away, but have they done that route before? How old are the kids?
If you're the term free-range parent, what do you think of?
I see a wide range within free-range parenting, but parents that basically let their kids do whatever they want, and I see that as a recipe for disaster.
When I think of a strict parent, I think of someone who might be more concerned with the behavior of the child than the heart of the child.
I actually do consider myself strict, but I want to be emotionally conscious.
We've been told by this oppressive, safety-obsessed, terrified society that you can never let your kid do anything on their own, maybe till they're like 36.
It's a luxury to be a free-range parent because there is a certain privilege that goes with that.
Being a strict parent, I think, first of all, I imagine stress. Should be a really fun time of your life. Why follow all these rules when you want to enjoy your kids?
You know, she's got a point. We want to have a good time with our kids. We want to make sure they've got a good childhood, that they've got those happy memories. But I've got to say right off the bat, I do not agree fully with what she's saying. No rules? Yeah, like the other guy said at the beginning, you know, it's probably going to be a recipe for disaster. We've got a real good mix of people here.
Hi, I'm Hal Chafee. I have 5 kids. I'm a minister, and we live in Maryland.
I'm Christian. I am a birth and postpartum doula as well as a newborn care specialist. I have 1 daughter who is 7.
Hi, I'm Jenny Atkins. I have 2 daughters. I'm a health coach, and I wrote a children's healthy cookbook.
My name's Wynn. I live in Los Angeles. I have 1 child. I'm a chef, restaurateur, author.
I'm Jody, and I'm the CEO of the Madden House, and I have 8 children, and I'm from LA.
Hi, Tiff.
8 children, CEO of the Madden House. I wonder, I don't know, but I wonder if she's a foster carer, a foster parent in America, because I know they can sometimes have quite a lot of kids. Big assumption there.
Everybody, I'm Lenore Skenazy. I'm the mother of 2, and I founded the book, blog, and movement Free Range Kids. Surprise. I founded the Free Range Kids movement. I let my 9-year-old ride the subway in New York City by himself. I wrote a column, and 2 days later I was on the Today Show, MSNBC, Fox News, and NPR defending my parenting style And I started Free Range Kids that weekend as a blog to say, look, I believe in safety. I just don't think that we have to, have a security detail every time we let our kids out of the house.
Really interesting. Where do we stand on this? I think that she's right in terms of we don't need to have a security detail every time a kid leaves the house. We need them to become independent. I don't know whether I would let a 9-year-old ride the subway. I mean, imagine letting them ride the tube in London alone. Anything could happen. But again, are we thinking that now because of all of the awful stuff that we hear happening to kids? It's not exactly the safest world. But I respect her for her choice. I'd be interested to know, did everything go okay with her kid? I'm probably sure it did, otherwise it wouldn't be on this video.
So can I have my free range parents on the left and my strict parents on the right?
See you later, free range parent.
Children should be trusted to make their own decisions.
While they're choosing, yes, they should be trusted to make their own decisions, but you do need to take into account the emotional age and the actual age of the children.
So of course children should make their own decisions. I mean, we're trying to raise them to be responsible adults. If they don't make decisions, they'll never learn.
When my child is possibly going to make a bad decision, what I want to do is not tell him it's a bad decision. I think that's the wrong thing to do, because then ultimately he's probably going to reject that anyway.
Also, it depends on what we're talking about decisions about. Like, if it's bedtime and you want your kids to be in bed at 8 o'clock, I think that is up to you. But I remember a time my son called me, he was 10 at the time, and he said, Mom, can I have another piece of banana bread? I thought, I felt bad, because of course that's a very simple decision. They expected that I was the one to decide almost everything about what they were eating and doing, and I felt like there was something wrong, and that actually started me reevaluating things. Can they climb?
That's really interesting what Lenora said. Yes, we set the rules and routines around bedtimes. We are the responsible adult, and that authority needs to be respected. It's really important as well that we get our own downtime, and when the kids are in bed, that's our time to be able to breathe, okay? But I'm not quite sure I fully agree with what she's saying about food. So of course you do want kids to not always need to ask you, can I just have one of this, can I just have one of that? But you know what? You do have to have some kind of rules in place, because otherwise kids left to their own devices might very well start eating just before food, just before dinner, and then they don't eat the dinner or the tea, whatever you call it. So, there are also some kids, especially those who have experienced trauma, they might use food as a comfort, as a way, as a hug, really. And actually not just kids, but adults too. We might use it as a hug. And that feels good. It releases those happy chemicals. And if we're not careful, we can end up with an unhealthy relationship with food. So I think, yes, if kids are able to make their own responsible decisions around food, then they should not have to ask. But until they're able to do that, then of course they should ask.
Climb the tree, just let them climb the tree.
And what's the worst that can happen? They break an arm?
Right, yeah.
Oh, well.
What? Okay. Something she just said then, which I really don't agree with. They break an arm. Oh, well. No. Children already can be quite risky in terms of what they do, because they don't always think things through. Their cause and effect thinking isn't always there. Okay, so if we know that a child's ability to make safe decisions isn't fully mature, you can't just let them do what they like. And if they break their arm, they break their arm. Of course, if they break their arm, yeah, they'll learn from it. But you can't very well just sit back or stand back and let that happen.
Well, for my kids specifically, she can go outside and play after school, and she can draw, and she can do whatever, but there is a very healthy boundary. Like, we don't have the type of healthcare that most people have. So, like, no, you can't climb a tree. If it's like, oh, I don't want to play violin anymore, but it's like, you're not allowed to quit things that you start, because even as an adult, you become a flaky adult.
Well, you see so many parents.
Okay. I like what she's saying to a degree, because, you know, ultimately from her perspective, where she's living, medical care costs money and it's not always available. So from her perspective, she's thinking, no, I can't have you take that risk because financially we're not going to be able to help, you know, in that situation. But then let's just carry on.
Nowadays, who just like bend to every whim of their child. Children should be trusted to make their own decisions when it is wise for them to make their own decisions. You know, I'm not going to let my 5-year-old decide that he's not going to brush his teeth anymore, because he doesn't. You know, as the child grows and as you as a parent train that child, then more freedom should be granted to make their own decisions.
But I don't think we should train our children. I feel like you train a dog and not a kid.
I think,
again, she's kind of hung up on that word, really, train. I think that's a bit of a trigger for her. But he's got a point. You know, children should definitely be granted more freedoms to make their own choices when they are mature enough to make those choices. Until then, they are looking towards us as the responsible adults who are mature to help them make those decisions.
I think train is a good word.
I don't want a trained child.
Okay, well, I do.
I want a child who has
to be trained,
creativity
to be
and who's
respectful.
maybe not like me.
You know, yeah, I'm not saying it's to be like me.
Do you think you need to train them to be respectful, or do you think that you guide them in a way to learn to be respectful because of the decisions they've chosen?
Both.
So what would you consider your parenting style to be?
I try to...
Ooh, good question. Let me answer that one first. I like to say that I am firm but fair. Okay. I always approach situations with a level of authority, because it's really, I need to make it really clear that there are boundaries and there are rules and they are there to be followed. Okay. But I'm not so strict and firm that I can't have a conversation with the kid. You know, if they don't agree with something, well, let's talk about it. And maybe we can come up with a compromise, because ultimately it's their life. But we are the parents, and I think especially kids that have been through trauma, they need us to be the unshakable, safe base. They need us to be unwavering, really, in terms of those rules.
Be as biblical as I can when it comes to parenting. I know a lot of people would disagree on that, but I have 5 kids and I do my best to follow it, and I found so much wisdom, and it's worked.
I don't really follow rules. Even if it's a theory of free-range parenting per se, if you're following those free-range parenting rules, then you become strict. And I don't think that there should be rules. It should be whatever the day brings.
Okay. Right, so first off, if you do have a child, or you're caring for a child who's experienced trauma or who has a level of anxiety, whatever the day brings is not going to cut it, I'm afraid. Structure, routines is what the day brings. And of course you can flex that, you know, as and when, but you've got to follow the rules and the routines, because then kids know where they are and where they belong in that kind of rules and routines. Because if you have no rules, anything could happen. And for a kid with trauma, that's a really scary thing and actually could make things much worse. I wonder why she feels like this.
Kids deserve privacy.
Okay, let me answer that one. Yes, they do deserve privacy, and especially as they get older as well, because, you know, they are going to be experiencing changes with their body. They need privacy. But you've also got to make sure that you are there to make sure that things are safe. We live in a digital world now, don't we, where they could be getting bullied, or they could be bullying somebody else. It's really important, I think, to have oversight of their online interactions. So we are very big on parental controls in our house. We use kind of Apple screen times, and we absolutely understand and got to grips with the settings on the router.
Wait, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, wait,
There we go. Oh, wait, we have a straggler.
Even though they're not adults, they're still people, and they need time to either hear their thoughts or process things, or just they need a sense of comfort in solitude and things that are sacred to them.
So I don't have any teenagers yet. There's no way.
Just wait.
There's no way.
Maybe my opinion would change.
I mean, there's no way that I'm not going to have access to their cell phone. That's not going to happen.
And this is the thing, guys, isn't it? You know, we've got the kids we've got at the age that they're at, and our views of parenting will undoubtedly change as they grow.
But if they want time alone, I think that's fine, and they should have that, and it's healthy to do that. The reason I hesitated is because I think back to my childhood. There were things that happened sometimes that can last with you for the rest of your life. You know, people can be abused online now. So when I have that parent spidey sense of something's not right here, and my kid's going to be like, no, you can't have my cell phone. Yes, I can.
Yeah, completely agree. So it's really important, especially if you're giving a phone to a child, to set those kind of rules at the outset. Okay. So, for example, the way I like to do it is, yes, you've got a phone and you've got all of the advantages that brings, access to the world, be able to get the information that you want, talk to your friends. But I think having a phone and being able to talk to people, for me, is a bit of a right. But having access to everything else that goes along with it, such as the games on your phone, everything that's on the internet, no, that is not a right. That is a luxury, and the way that you will have those is if we agree that we will look for your phone together, sporadically, but together, and then that way it can be used as a coaching activity. You know, looking at what's going on, giving a little bit of gentle guidance when needed, but it allows you to, I guess, to parent.
In our household, we live by this kind of thought. Live your life in such a way that if everyone could see what you're doing in private, that you wouldn't be ashamed. So my kids also look through my phone. Privacy.
No, don't agree. Some things are private, and it is okay to have that privacy. And especially if that child has got some very deep feelings and some big worries, they could be quite ashamed of things in their life, especially, if they are a kid with quite a bit of trauma. And it's their absolute right to have some privacy. So no, and you know what? No, I do not think that a child should be looking through my phone. I have adult conversations with my adult friends that are not necessarily, appropriate for a child to look at. I mean, I'm not really having any exciting conversations, but you know what I mean. An adult's phone is an adult's phone. So no, they should not be allowed.
Is not something a child should be entitled to have. Do we give our kids quiet downtime? Yes. Am I looking through all their stuff? No.
I actually agree with the definition of downtime and privacy. At my house, there's no privacy because you don't pay any bills. She also trusts me, and I've wanted to make a relationship where she trusts me that even if she came to tell me, like, there's no yell, I don't yell and I don't scream and I don't do any things like that. We're very open, but there is no privacy.
I really like what she's saying to a degree, but got to be realistic. I mean, I have never met a parent who hasn't yelled at their children, because it's normal, it is natural to be annoyed. And although I don't like to yell and shout, and I try very hard not to, every so often you are pushed, and there doesn't need to be any apologies for doing that. What you need to do at that point is then role model, okay? Sit down with your kid afterwards and do the repair work and show them that it is okay to be upset. Often, I will say something like, you do not live in a world where you can do whatever you want and people are not going to get annoyed and frustrated and upset. So what you've just experienced there is a natural consequence of the way that you've behaved. But that doesn't mean that your behaviour is all right, and that doesn't necessarily mean that mine's all right either. So let's talk about it, okay? Let's learn from it.
So I just wanted to put in a plea, though, for some privacy. You know, I go around and I talk about free-range kids, and sometimes what I ask the audience is to tell me when something did go wrong. And I asked them, did you tell your parents? What do you think they said? No. Why do you think they said it? Fear of what?
Being in trouble, yeah.
You think it's trouble. They said they didn't want their freedom taken away.
I think it's important, though, that we hold our children accountable, because in the world, there are plenty of adults who are not held accountable, who've never been held accountable, and they just do things that are terrible.
But most of childhood is little things, and you don't have to be there for everyone, because that's when kids start realizing, I can handle this.
On that, accountability is really important. Absolutely, and I think as your child gets older, have to bring in the accountability more. But again, they're still a kid, and kids make mistakes, and kids don't have to think about everybody else all of the time, so we should allow them to be a child every so often. Well, not every so often, all the time.
Free-range parent, what do you think of?
Privilege, the ability to just do things without any repercussions or consequences. As a Black person or a person of color, we sometimes just don't have the privilege to allow our children to be free range. Although I would love for her to be free spirit and just do and be, she can't, because Black kids get murdered in the street.
Parents should be parents and not friends.
There's definitely going to be some mixed reactions here, isn't there? Parents should be parents, as far as I'm concerned. But that doesn't mean that you can't be friends as well. But the thing you've got to remember is kids will fall out with their friends all of the time, yeah? You cannot be a friend to your kid if there is a potential then for them to then fall out with you and not listen and not go to you, okay? You're the parent. And I don't think that ever ends. I mean, you can become more friendly, and your relationship will change and grow as the children get older. But you're not going to be their friend. You are their parent.
No, this is actually hard for me. My job is not to be my kid's friend; it's to be their parent. But I don't think that is mutually exclusive of not being their friend either. If that makes any
Exactly.
sense. But I prioritize, right, being the parental unit.
Me and my mom, I would say that she's my best friend. But like as a child, she was my mom. And I hope to have that type of relationship with my daughter. But right now, I'm the parent and you're the child, because I don't want you to lose respect for me. Like, I'm not going to go clubbing with my daughter. Like, there's just some things that I'm just not going to do that I do with my friends, and I'm not going to do with my kid.
I agree that I'm their mom first, but I'm also their friend. I'm also someone that they trust and admire, and they come to, and I listen to them, and I give them my opinions, and we have forged a friendship.
But here's the thing. A parent is all of those things too. A parent is the person you go to. A parent isn't somebody who is just passing down rules and edicts whenever they want, and you're not really going to be connecting. A good parent is someone that connects and does all of that she's talking about.
But it's not without my position as the authority in their life, their provider, their comfort, their mama.
In my mind, once my kids are 18, or let's just say moved out of the house, they are an adult. And at that point, I want to stop parenting.
Okay, I'm beginning to build up a little picture, and I don't want to criticise her too much, because ultimately, you know, we are all doing what we think we should be doing for the kids that are in our lives. But I'm sorry, kids are not... They might be old enough, they might technically be adults at the age of 18, but developmentally, maturity-wise, they're not going to be ready necessarily. So you can't just stop parenting. You know, how many adults today ring up their parents when they've got a problem? Your parents for life.
If I haven't parented enough by the time they're 18, then that was my chance. I don't want to be a parent after 18.
Okay, I'm really getting really frustrated by what she's saying. And that's okay. Because ultimately, she's like, I've had my chance. If I haven't done it by 18, I've just washed my hands. That's what it sounds like to me. And maybe I'm interpreting it the wrong way. Give her some benefit of the doubt, I guess.
And when it comes to clubbing, I hope that when my kid is old and grown up and they're going out for a beer at a bar or whatever they're doing, of course I want to come with them. But
I was just talking about this the other night. I was saying, look, you know, when you're older, yeah, and you want to learn some dance moves, you need to be getting them from me. Because honestly, I loved dancing. But the reality is I'm going to be a dad dancing. Okay? It's not going to be the same.
Here's the thing, I just want to say on the other side of that is that we never stop growing up. I mean, man, I don't have parents. I wish I did. There's some times where I wish I could just ask for help. I mean, my grandmother just passed away in May. And I remember like just feeling like, what am I gonna do? And that was not a friend moment. That was me hiding like a little child on her lap, weeping and crying and needing that.
I guess I don't.
She raises a really good point. Throughout our lives, we are going to regress. We are going to be that small child that just needs their mum, needs their dad, you know, needs their carer in their life or in their lives. Yeah, that can happen at any point.
We're going to do that. No, you're going to do that. If your kid comes to you, I'm sure you will.
Of course. I guess I just want this.
Right.
You know, I want them to be very independent.
Right. But you can be very independent. She's super independent.
Yeah, for sure.
With your own mother, do you have a mother? And if you do you ever just need your mama sometimes? Do you ever
Not really.
You don't need to like
No.
get hugged or have like
I
the
speak
love
to
and
her like
comfort?
she's my friend.
Okay.
Now. And I think I spoke to her as my friend when I was growing up as well. Because she didn't parent. I had no rules. And
That, I mean, someone's about to say it, that explains a lot. So in her life, her parent wasn't there to give those rules, to set those boundaries, and she was basically a free spirit, doing whatever she wanted. And what she's trying to do then is parent her child in the same way. Now, who's to say that that is right or wrong? You know, we'd have to look at how those kids are doing later in life. You know, I'm not here to judge that, but that does explain why she has the views that she's got.
And that explains a lot. When you talk about your philosophy, it's really a first-hand account where maybe some of the rest of us are like exploring how we might want to parent.
right, but we all raise our children probably according to a little bit of how we were
What we
raised.
know, what we wished had been different.
Yeah.
And then there's so many societal influences.
Sure.
And that's a really good point. You know, this generational parenting, you know, you learn what you learn, or you learn how to parent from how you were parented, or you might look at how your parents think, you know, I don't want to be like that. But you are influenced by your own experiences and by the people that are parenting around you, and by, as you know, she said, society and what is acceptable and what's not.
You mentioned before you were going to face
growing up without the security of knowing who I was and knowing that I was dearly loved and cherished by my mother and father was soul crushing for me. As a mother, I have the opportunity to raise up a new generation of healthy, whole individuals who are able to go forth and create new families of their own and be a light in this world. And that's really what my hope is with my children.
Spanking your child is an acceptable form of punishment.
Well, you know my answer because I mentioned it right at the start. No, it isn't. Spanking is just, in my eyes, completely unacceptable. There are other ways to help your child. Words for a start, and actions like a hug, not spanking.
What? I don't want to get involved.
He has gone down in my estimation because there was an awful lot that I agreed with at the start about how he's parenting. But this is the thing, you know, it's okay to like some things and not others.
Yeah, this is not.
Do we have to?
We don't have to do it at all.
I don't even want to stand back here.
We don't have to, you guys don't have to participate in the conversation whatsoever.
But
You know what, actually, now the other people are really annoying me. Yes, okay, is you know, you might have your own opinions of it. I don't think people should be spanked. But to say, oh, I don't really want to be in the room while the conversation's happening. Yes, okay, it might be hard to listen to, but you're taking part in this TV show or this documentary about parenting. It's a conversation that needs to be had.
But is it going to show our position, like standing back or sitting?
We do see you guys in the background, but we just want to hear his perspective. Then people can walk forward, but if you don't want to participate in the conversation whatsoever, you don't have to.
Well, yeah, so I'm kind of sad that nobody else walked forward because not only do I think it's an acceptable form of punishment, but I think it's one of the best. And the reason...
Okay, he better have a good reason for this. I mean, I'm definitely not going to be listening to his reasons and acting upon them, but I am interested to see what he's got to say.
Is because it's effective, it's quick, it's over, it's done, and the kid can go off and play again and not have to sit in a corner or languish in a room or something like that. And it's not about getting angry, I'm mad, I'm gonna whack my kid. No, it's about, okay, you did something you weren't supposed to do, and you're going to get spanked for this.
Okay. So I guess the saving grace, if there is a saving grace, and it really isn't much of one, is the fact that he's not hitting from a place of anger. You know, he's saying that, you know, one of the consequences of your actions is like, you know, some spanking. But isn't that how they used to, in a way, be like at school with the caning of the hand, and we don't do that anymore? Now, to be fair, I'm an 80s kid, and I was hit by my parents. I personally do not hold any grudges against that. I don't have any scars, like mental scars around that. Because back then, I think, you know, probably still not right, but it was something that quite a lot of parents did. But, you know, societal expectations have changed, and there are better ways to deal with it. One thing that I do have the mental image of still, though, is seeing, I remember seeing other kids around me bearing the bruises that they got from their own spankings. And I can't forget that.
So I'm going to ask any of my disagreeers who wish to step forward to talk about this. Please do. If you wish not to step forward, you don't have to.
The specific anecdote I have is for my child is one time, like, you know, as a parent, you can lose your patience, and that happens. We would just kind of like slap him on the hand when he did something, like, don't do that. And I remember one time he did something, and he started becoming more self-aware, and he started hitting himself on the hand and hitting himself. And I was like, I can't do this. We can't go down this path with him. This is not going to work for, at least specifically for him. And I think it's a case-by-case basis too. Like, you know, you've led your kids in a way that hopefully doesn't lash out into the real world. And I don't want him to react like that to someone else either. And I just feel like that's my responsibility. So
Yeah, and you know, I hear that opponents to spanking will say, I don't want my child to be violent.
yeah.
You know, I have 5 kids, 10 and under, and the exact opposite is true.
Because do you think it's a bad memory for them?
What's that?
Do you think that they're going to have memories of these times being spanked and that it will be
Sure, and I think
something
they'll be
that
thankful for it. I would do, because I
would be lying if I said I never have spanked my child. Of course but I don't feel good about it.
Yeah.
Don't you want to raise your child to not want to do things because they feel as if they'll be a better person, not because they're going to be punished for it?
Yeah, both. See, this is hard for me to understand because I come from a culture where everyone, like all my friends, have loving parents that spanked them as kids. And now they've grown up to be great well-functional adults who respect their parents and are glad their parents spanked them.
Okay, I'm just gonna say my view. So I don't spank my child, one, because of chattel slavery and Jim Crow. I'm a black person and I live in a world where black people are beaten all the time. I have a mother who spanked me. I'm not glad that I was spanked. I respect her, but I'm not happy about that. Also the same thing with the people who are like, I was spanked, I came out great. They usually have like anger issues, they're violent, they whip their own kids, they probably need therapy. Usually they don't even realize how...
I mean, she's generalising a lot there. Yeah.
How emotionally fucked up they are.
Well, you gotta understand, parenting is more than just I spank or I don't spank. If you're a terrible parent and you think that spanking is gonna fix your kid, you're wrong.
I sometimes fear I am raising my children the wrong way.
Yes. You know, I don't think we would... I don't think I've met a parent who doesn't at some point worry about that. And I think, personally, that's what makes a great parent, because you need to have that reflection. You know, you need to be thinking about, what did I do? How did I handle it? What would I do differently next time? You know, I think it's healthy to have that feeling.
I think part of parenting is always worrying. I mean, as hard as I try to do the right things, you know, there's always doubts in your mind that you've done something wrong.
I love to tell parents, especially new ones, that we're all winging it. We're making mistakes every day, but the good thing about it is that our kids still love us. They still look at us like mommy, and their
Or
eyes.
friend. Right. Club buddy.
Right. So
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a thing between them two then, kind of the clubbing. But you're right, we are always making mistakes, and like with me, especially if I'm being more authoritative at that point, I'll be like, right guys, this is what needs to happen, bam, 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 bam. Or someone might be saying, well, that's not right, I didn't do that, etc. You've got to go where you got, and you've got to make a decision. I will often say, look, if I am wrong, if it turns out that I am wrong, I will apologise. I will say sorry, we'll sit down, we will make it right. But until then, this is what's going to happen. And just be really clear.
like parenting is literally just like one huge ass experiment.
That's a nice expression.
You know,
parenting is one huge ass experiment. Right. People think that I have the answer because I wrote Free Range Kids and I run this Let Grow, and all I can say is that believing in your kids, believing in them, whether you give them a timeout or you're spanking them, believing that your kids have this capacity for being a decent human being, and they're going to make mistakes, they're going to be okay. That's what kids want.
So, first of all, I think that parents are too hard on themselves. And you know what? Ultimately, your children are going to make their own decisions. For me, I don't wonder about whether or not I'm raising my kids right, because I try to raise my kids according to what the Bible says. And so I have a guide that I fall short fulfilling all the time, but I look to it as my guide. And so just a few simple guidelines, if you follow and you love your kids, you care about them, and you spend time with them, then ultimately they're going to be okay.
I just love my kids so much, and I give them 110%. One of the neat things that I'm giving my kids that's a little bit different is a mother and father who are married and faithful to one another, which I didn't have that. And so it makes me feel really good that I'm giving them that. I know that I'll never just be totally set in my ways and be unwilling to change and to become a better mother. So I will never give up growing myself.
Yeah, that's a great philosophy. We are all growing, you know. None of us have the answers. We've got our own insights, we have our lived experiences, but we do not have the answers. And of course, all we can do is just keep growing and commit to that self-reflection.
The one piece of parenting advice I give everyone is don't listen to all the advice, because the beautiful thing about parenting is not what you're teaching your child, but sometimes what you're learning with your child.
I think we all just want the same things. Everybody wants their children to be confident and secure in their love.
It's just a lot of fun to have kids. And I always tell people, I said, if you want to be a happier person, have more kids, because kids are just so much fun.
That was really interesting. I'm going to put the link to it in the description, so if you want to look at it again or subscribe to them, you can do. But yeah, so my final advice, I kind of agree with what was said there. Do not follow the advice that you are given. So you might as well just tune out and not subscribe. But, you know, take the little bits of advice that you get. You know, I'll have a bit of that, I'll have a little bit like a pick a mix when you're choosing your sweets. I'll have a bit of that and a bit of that, and just get something that works for you and your family at that moment in time. But what you did last year or last week might not necessarily work going forward, or what you're doing with one child might not necessarily work with another. So you've got to flex. That was a really good video, guys. If you stayed with me right until the end, thank you. Please subscribe to my channel. Let me get some more subscribers and grow it and get this message out there to everybody. I hope from today's video you've got a bit of a feel for who I am as a parent. I would say, again, firm but fair, willing to back down, willing to compromise, which is probably the key word there, compromise, and just make sure that our kids have a great time but feel safe doing that. And importantly, that as parents get our own time as well. All right, until next time.